This ministry had released a total of 13 point
And of course, if you are tuning into Smart 24 TV, many thanks for joining in. It is Smart Means Business, 1 minute of 7 o'clock. The show will kick start off at 6:30 a.m. and we're definitely here to make sure that we give you all that matters business. And of course, as a matter of fact, as we continue to driving your business and giving you all the business regards and the business matters, to keep up to speed with the same information as it's supposed to be coming. It's Thursday, the 12th of January, 2023. January does seem to be a very long month, according to some of the myth by most of the people within the country and those out of the country now. But as you can see, the business community within the East African region continues to at least get into shape of recovering from the shocks that happened in 2022 and of course thinking about recovery in 2023. And well, as a matter of fact, as we continue to give you all these same situations, you will have to realize that there are lots of business information coming up. And of course, with the same scenario, you should be able to understand the investment schemes available. Now, Zabo is an investment platform that gives you that advantage. Use the USSD code *292# and follow the prompts. It will be that easy for you to at least follow up on the kind of situations that do happen. Well, Zabu, which is a platform by Otex East Africa, says do something new. And of course, you should be able to understand that the only new thing that you can do today is to invest in bonds and securities. And well, that is exactly what you should be thinking of for now as an individual. Do drive your business, but try as much as you can to invest in government bonds and securities. That is the USSD code *292# that you can definitely use to kickstart off your investment journey. And well, that will be enough for you to at least see that you enter into a new year with investments. Markets open at 8:15 a.m. and close at 3:15 p.m. So with just a minimum of 15,000 Ugandan shillings, you will be able to invest. Zabu, my money, my future. Altex East Africa, do something new. Well, it's a good morning, and our first business update is basically rotating around the Q3 expenditure release for the financial year 2022-2023, with 25% being released of the discretionary budget. But not only that, local government is set to receive 2.354.799 billion Ugandan shillings. In the update coming in, we do have the permanent secretary to the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Ramadan Gobi, with more of the same matter. Let's get it.
This ministry had released a total of 13.693 trillion. This represents 52.7% of the approved discretionary budget. And this money was released in 4 major broad areas. Number one, wage. We released 3.607 trillion out of the approved total wage of 6.375 trillion. This represents 56.6% of the money meant for wage. We have released it by the first half of the financial year. Of course, the slight increase in the wage release over and above the 50% which should have been the release was mainly for areas of enhancement, which was done, as I've told you before, when the budget had already been approved. But we have already released that money, which we have presented in we are going to present to Parliament in a supplementary. Then non-wage, we budgeted for 11.1 trillion, and we have released so far 6.3 trillion shillings. That represents 56.9% of the non-wage released. Government of Uganda development budget, we budgeted for 7.8 trillion and we have released just over 3 trillion. Actually 3 trillion and 24 billion shillings has been released. That is about 38.5%. Arrears, domestic arrears, we budgeted for 661 billion. We have released 743 billion. So a release of 112% by the first half. In other words, we have given our creditors more money than what we had budgeted in order to support them to recover. Local government releases. Releases to local governments were effected based on annual work plans, quarterly work plans, and annual cash flow plans, and a total of 2.354 trillion shillings, that is 2.354 trillion, has been released to local governments in mainly 3 broad areas. Wage, we have released to local governments 1.594 trillion shillings. Non-wage, we have released so far 530 billion, and development, we have given them 229 billion. For development, 35% of the local government development grants were released in the first half of this financial year to enable local government to implement several projects in a timely manner. The transfers to educational institutions, health units, and all lower local governments are transmitted directly to their institutional bank accounts. I now come specifically to this third quarter, the third quarter expenditure limits we have issued. This quarter runs from January, this month, up to March. And we have released a total of 6 trillion 369 billion and some million shillings, about 829 million. So we have released about 24.5% of the discretionary budget. And this has been released in the 4 broad areas as follows. Wage, we have released 1.792 trillion shillings, 1.792 billion shillings for wage, and that represents 28% of the approved wage. Non-wage, we have released 2.554 billion. That is about 22.9% of the non-wage. Government of Uganda development budget, we have released 1.999 billion shillings, and that represents 25.47% of the budget for government development. Domestic areas, we have released 31.8 billion. I told you in the first half we had released over and above what we had budgeted. We have also released now some more money for domestic areas, about 31.8 billion. So in total, in the third quarter, we are releasing 6,369 billion out of the approved discretionary budget of 26 trillion and 1 billion. The breakdown of the money we have released is as follows. As I've told you, the wage, 1,792 billion. This includes the wage enhancements for scientists and the UPDF officers. We have also released 128.993 billion to cater for payment of pension for the retired civil servants, and another 132.417 billion to cater for gratuity payments in this quarter. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have fully released the money meant for wage, pension, and gratuity as budgeted for, as we did in the second quarter and as we did in the first quarter. We don't expect any public worker, any pensioner, anyone who expects gratuity, not to get them in a timely manner. As a ministry, we keep on releasing the money.
In this particular year that the government released the third quarter of the parish development model funds, and of course 25 million Ugandan shillings going over to 10,000 parishes within the country, and of course to ensure that the disbursement comes on board. We are as well looking through the final quarter of the financial year for 2023, for 2022-2023, as we await for the financial year 2023-2024, after the budget framework paper was apparently released to Parliament. But well, as we're looking at the same situation from this particular business app, that we switch our eyes to the press review to see what the media on the print have got to say about the same disbursement of money from the Ministry of Finance for the third quarter. Well, now, when we look at the press review here, the Daily Monitor and the New Vision, like I said, if we're to look at what the print media is going to say about what government did yesterday and the early week, we start with the government releasing over 6.4 trillion Ugandan shillings for salary projects. This is according to what the Daily Monitor has highlighted. Well, when you look at the allocations, show that 1.8 trillion shillings has been allocated to wages and scientists plus UPDF. Then when you look at the others, ministries, departments and agencies that have for long been cash-strapped can now implement programs. Then there is payment of pension with 129 billion Ugandan shillings, the gratuity payments, 132 billion shillings. Then the parish development model has walked away with 264 billion shillings. Then we have something to do with the public universities with 144 billion shillings on the same matter. This is according to the Daily Monitor's breakdown here, as we can see. Now, also on the other hand, there is an issue to do with family, which has now laid claim to 370 billion shillings Chisenyi land. There's in between the line, Essence Nolan Nachibuka wrote to the finance ministry claiming ownership of the 10-acre piece of land and accused the business companies of fraud for the same matter, if you're to continue looking at this. Now, also on the issue to do with NSSF, companies have defaulted remittance for 700,000 savers, as the Gender, Labour and Social Development Minister, Betty Amongi, said employers have failed to remit 200 billion Ugandan shillings of their workers' contribution to the NSSF fund. And then also to the other matter, government has cancelled loans for over 1,000 students, still with the Daily Monitor here. This is courtesy of the Higher Education Students Financing Board, which suspended study loans for the continuing students in all universities and then other tertiary institutions across the country as well. So this is another kind of situation that you will definitely get from the Daily Monitor this morning. So on the other hand, government has listed priority plans after successfully fighting Ebola, after the World Health Organization did apparently reveal that Uganda is now Ebola free. Then the Daily Monitor, another health concern report, Mulago is seeking for 16 billion shillings for staff houses. That is also something you can get off from the Daily Monitor in here. Now, crossing over to the New Vision to see what else is actually making headlines from there regarding the world of business. Finance Ministry has released 6.4 trillion shillings to government entities as well. Now, the payment covers pension, gratuity, and the parish development model. Then there is something to do with salary increment for scientists, as UPDF soldiers have been included on this one. Then nuclear energy Korean farm is set to build a 33 trillion shilling plant. This is what the New Vision has apparently discussed. Now, there's also a big interview where the Kampala roadworks cost not inflated, according to what is being illustrated here by the ED Dorothy Chisaka as well. Now, NSSF is set to continue paying savers, according to a statement that was released yesterday by the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, Betty Amongi, as he was addressing the media on the same matter at the Uganda Media Center yesterday. So more details still with the New Vision, and also a breakdown of the finance release of 6.4 trillion Ugandan shillings to government entities for the third quarter, as money for third quarter has been released with key highlights of how much has been disbursed here, with a total of 6.4 trillion released. Then on the other hand, 1.7 trillion for salaries. Then there is 1.5 trillion going in for local government. Is one of those particular key things that you should be able to look at from this same issue. Now, not only that, as I did start off here, the local government was said to receive 2.354.799 trillion billion shillings, but then the other kind of disbursement has seen salaries going in for 1.7 trillion, that is the salaries for the public servants, 1.5 trillion going into the local government, and then 31.8 billion going in for domestic areas in that same aspect. Also, a detail to do with land compensation. MPs have raised concern over the 120 billion budget cut. That is according to the Daily Monitor and the New Vision in today's press review. Well, now let's head to the traffic updates this morning, where we do have the region Andrew on ground to take us through what is happening with the flow of traffic within the Kampala areas, and to at least humbly take you through which route is better for you to use this particular morning.
Thank you very much, Jerome. And today is, of course, we are just right here at the Kaleri junction, observing the traffic condition right here. But the place, as you can see, it's a little bit calm. It's not really as congested as you can observe. It's quite a very cold morning here, and it's business as usual. As you know, there is just a market opposite just that side where transactions are taking place. And of course, that explains why sometimes on certain days there is congestion. But today, it's a little bit not congested. It's the situation is a little bit calm. So probably, as you can look at this side, probably now like on this junction, heading straight, the road heading to Chebando, you can see it's a little bit calm. Of course, quite a few trucks making this U-turn on the roundabout, but the situation is a little bit calm. So if you're coming from Chebando and probably you're going to pass through this particular junction to head straight to town, you will be in position to reach in time. You can see the vehicles that are moving all the way from Chebando, crossing over to the roundabout. It's all very fine. And at the same time, if you're coming from Boyogere and you're planning to use this particular junction of Kalere, and probably you're heading to Busega, are you heading to places and Namungona, so many of those places, chances are high that you will be in position to actually reach in time. At the same time, if you're in the nearby places around Kalere Junction and you're heading to town, you will be in position to actually reach in time. In a space of about 5 minutes, you will be already there. So the situation is a little bit calm, despite the presence of a market here, which of course attracts quite lots of buyers. So if we face back to that route, that lane that heads to Busega, of course, quite so many places, Waise, Busega, Namungona, and forth, of course, stretching up to the Busega roundabout that side. It's a very calm place. It's very, very calm. So if you're coming from Busega and probably you're going to pass via the Kalere Junction and you're probably heading to Boyogere, I guarantee you that you will be in time to reach, you will be in position to reach in the actual time that you should reach. So it's very calm. It's a Thursday and there is not too much speed. You know, it's very calm. I'm actually very surprised with what I'm observing currently. Yes, you feel that's the space right here. Now, away from that lane, if we are to head back to this particular route that is heading to town, from Kalere Junction, and it's heading to town, and of course it also connects to Mulago. Yes, you will be, if you're coming from that side, from town, and you're going to pass this Kalere Junction and you're heading to Chebando, or you're crossing over, heading to Busega, going to Wegere, you will be in position to actually reach in time. Yes, it's not as calm. Probably, before we came on site, the only areas that might be a little bit hectic for you is crossing the Mulago roundabout. Perhaps if you're coming from town and you're coming to this particular route, there is a little bit of a slight congestion that we came across as we are actually coming. So chances are high that you may not reach your destination very well. If you're coming from town and you're heading to Chebando and you're going to pass via the Kalere Junction, it may be a little bit hard. But now, still, let's look at the vehicles that are heading straight to town. Yes, it seems a smooth flow, though ahead it's a little bit tight. So ahead now, like at the Mulago Junction right there, it could be the only hindrance, but Kalere Junction is very, very okay. It's not where you're going to really spend time as on normal occasions. So the situation is mild. It's not really too much of a complex right here as you are observing. And of course, quite many pedestrians at the same time. Of course, so many people crossing the road, heading over to the market to purchase stuff. And some are taking them to their small shops to sell them. So definitely that explains why some of the vehicles have to stop a little bit and let these pedestrians cross. And in that stopping, depending on the intervals, will affect the jam, you know, will determine the congestion, the traffic congestion in the area. And also what we've observed here is that there are no traffic officers to actually control the jam. So it's about self-discipline of the different individuals, the different cyclists, you know, applying the self-discipline to ensure that they do what they are supposed to do, and of course to ensure efficiency in the smooth in the flow of traffic right here. But so far so good, so far so good, so good. Now if we are to look down here at the northern bypass up here, it's calm actually. It's a calm. It's always calm as usual. So it could also be an alternative route if you're coming from Busega and probably connecting straight to areas like Chisasi, you're heading to Ntinda, we will be in position to actually reach in time. Yeah, it's always a calm. It's also an alternative for those that are coming from Namungona, and of course you're heading to you're joining over to Chisasi Ntinda. and so many of those areas right there, you will be in position to actually reach in time. It could be a good alternative right there. Use that flyover there and you go transact your business as usual and you make your profits. You go reach your workplace in time, and of course to avoid the penalties that might come along that way. So that's the traffic condition as it's happening right here at the Kaleri Junction. Just a brief. Generally, the situation is calm, very, very mild, and 90% chances are there that you will be in position to reach your destination in the time you've programmed, if I'm to base on the current traffic conditions right here. And that's it for the traffic updates. Andrew Bariji, back to studio with Joram.
Andrew has pretty much brought it to speed that, well, the fact is, according to the kind of traffic, that the traffic flow that is ongoing now, it is not too tight as of now. You get to realize that it's, at least if you move out of your house now, because the situation is still calm, you can easily reach in time, regardless of whether you're leaving now or in the next 10 or 15 minutes, according to the kind of traffic flow ongoing in those areas connecting to Namungona, heading to the Waise areas, or those who are heading to the Express, and all that kind of situation as well. And of course, that is it for the traffic outlets. And after the break, when I do return, we shall be switching our eyes to Caribou, East Africa, for updates coming in across the East African region. But not only that, we shall as well try to understand the scope of the international scene with more business updates from there.
Smart 24, driving business.